Hello everyone. I'm the storyteller from the channel Whispered Tales and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from? At what time are you watching? Now, get comfortable and relax. I don't know why I agreed to the trip. I suppose curiosity got the better of me. The old captain spoke of the island as though it were a place outside of time, where the tides whispered secrets and the fog never truly lifted. It wasn't marked on any modern map, just a sliver of land lost in the northern sea, known only to a handful of fishermen and fools. And I was a fool. The journey there was a blur of salt spray and wind. The boat rocked in the rolling waves as the island emerged like a dark tooth from the gray water, its cliffs jagged and sharp against the dim horizon. The sun was nowhere to be found, though it was midday. I stepped ashore, boots crunching on slick pebbles. The air smelled of brine and rot, as though something long dead lingered beneath the surface. The captain gave me one look, something between pity and fear, before he pushed the boat back into the surf and turned away without a word. And just like that, I was alone. The beach was narrow and uneven, scattered with driftwood and broken shells. Beyond the shore, a tangled forest rose, dark and dense. The trees twisted unnaturally, their branches gnarled like ancient hands clawing at the sky. I took a breath and began walking. The path I followed was barely a path at all. It wound through the trees, leading me deeper into the island's heart. With every step, the world grew quieter. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just the sound of my own footsteps and the distant, endless crash of the waves. It wasn't long before I found the first sign that something was wrong. A cairn of stones stood by the path, carefully stacked, with small bones wedged between the rocks. Bird bones, maybe. Or something smaller. Each stone was marked with a strange symbol, a spiral within a circle, crudely scratched into the surface. I paused, feeling a cold prickle run down my spine. This was no place of welcome. But there was nowhere to go but forward. The fog thickened as I climbed higher. I could barely see a few feet ahead, and the trees closed in like walls. Time slipped away from me, I couldn't tell how long I'd been walking. Minutes? Hours? I began to hear things. A low hum in the distance. A faint, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat in the earth itself. I told myself it was the sea. Just the sea. But the feeling of being watched grew stronger with every step. At last, the trees parted, revealing a clearing. In the center stood the remains of a building, an old lighthouse, crumbling and broken, its windows empty and dark. Moss crawled over its stone walls, and the iron railings were rusted through. Relief washed over me despite myself. Shelter, at last. I crossed the clearing quickly, glancing over my shoulder as if expecting something to follow. The lighthouse door hung loose on its hinges, groaning as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Dust coated the floor in thick layers. I found an old oil lamp on a shelf and, to my surprise, it still held a bit of fuel. My lighter flickered weakly but caught, and soon a dim, wavering glow filled the room. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I sat down on the cracked floorboards, listening. For a while, there was only silence. And then, a soft scraping, far away. I held my breath. It came again, closer now. Something moving outside the lighthouse, circling. Slow, deliberate steps crunching through the undergrowth. I killed the lamp, plunging myself into darkness. The footsteps paused. And then, faintly, something touched the door. A soft drag of claws, or fingers. I waited, heart hammering in my chest. After what felt like an eternity, the sound faded. The steps retreated, swallowed by the fog. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, if it could be called morning, was no brighter than the night before. The fog remained, thick and pale, hiding the sky. I needed to know what else was on this island. I couldn't stay in the lighthouse forever. So I gathered my things, lit the lamp again, and stepped back outside. The air was colder now. And somewhere deep in the woods, something let out a low, guttural growl. I froze. It was still out there. Watching. Waiting. I didn't run. Running felt wrong, like it would draw whatever lurked in the shadows closer, faster. Instead, I forced my legs to move at a steady pace, even though every instinct screamed at me to flee. The fog muffled everything, my footsteps, my breathing, the distant crash of waves. I could hardly tell if I was moving toward safety or further into the creature's territory. The trees grew thicker as I pressed on. Their bark was rough and cold beneath my fingertips, wet with condensation. Strange marks scarred their trunks, scratches too deep and too high to be the work of any human hand. I found another path. Narrow, barely visible, winding toward a rocky rise. I climbed, slipping on wet moss and loose stones until I reached a plateau overlooking the woods. From here, I saw it. A shape moving through the fog below. Not fully visible, not fully hidden. Tall. Wrong. Its limbs too long, its movements too smooth, like flowing liquid wrapped in flesh. It drifted between the trees, pausing every so often as if tasting the air. Searching. For me. I ducked behind a fallen log, heart pounding so loudly I was sure it would hear me. The creature tilted its head toward the plateau. And then, it turned away and melted back into the fog. I stayed hidden long after it disappeared, afraid that if I moved, it would return. Eventually, when silence fell again, I slid down the slope and made my way westward, away from the lighthouse, deeper into the island's unknown reaches. The forest gave way to an open marsh. Pools of stagnant water reflected the blank sky, and thin reeds swayed in the non-existent wind. In the middle of the marsh stood an old stone structure, half collapsed, buried in mud. From a distance, it looked like a shrine. Curiosity overpowered fear. I approached carefully, my lamp casting weak light over the cracked stones. Symbols covered every surface, spirals within circles, jagged lines, unfamiliar runes. The same ones I'd seen on the cairn earlier. At the center of the shrine lay a hollow depression, filled with bones. Small ones at first. Birds. Rodents. Then larger. A human skull stared up from the pile, yellowed and cracked. I staggered back, nearly dropping the lamp. Suddenly, the wind rose. A hollow, whispering sound swirled around me, carrying words I couldn't understand. They scraped at my mind, just beyond comprehension. And then I heard it, my name. Spoken softly, from nowhere. I spun around. No one there. The whispers faded as suddenly as they'd come, leaving only the rustling reeds and my own shaking breath. I fled the shrine, not caring where my feet took me. Hours seemed to pass as I stumbled through the marsh and forest, the light dimming with each step. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. When exhaustion finally forced me to rest, I found myself in a grove unlike any other place on the island. The trees were dead here, their blackened branches reaching upward like burned bones. In the center of the grove, a circle of stones surrounded a pit of ashes. Something had been burned here. Recently. I knelt by the pit, brushing away the cold ash. Beneath it, buried shallowly, was a torn scrap of cloth. I froze. It was my jacket. The same jacket I was wearing now. But aged, tattered, as if left here for years. A chill deeper than fear settled over me. What was this place? I stood, heart racing, when the sound returned. That slow, steady thumping I'd heard before. It was closer now. I turned toward the noise. And there, between the dead trees, two faintly glowing eyes stared back at me. They blinked, slowly. A shape began to emerge from the fog, tall and thin, limbs bending in ways no creatures should. It moved toward me, soundless, inevitable. I took a step back, and the ground gave way beneath me. I fell, tumbling down a steep slope, crashing through roots and rocks, until everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was somewhere else entirely. A cavern. Its walls glistened with damp moss, and faint bioluminescent fungi cast a cold, bluish light. I could hear the sea above me, distant and muffled. I wasn't alone. In the darkness beyond the light, something breathed. Slow. Heavy. I stayed still, barely daring to breathe myself. And then I heard it move. A dragging sound, as though its limbs scraped against the stone floor. I scrambled to my feet, lamp clutched tight, and ran. The tunnels twisted endlessly, leading me deeper and deeper underground. My lamp flickered dangerously low. And still, that thing followed. Always just out of sight. I don't know how long I ran before I found the staircase. Old, stone, spiraling upward. Without thinking, I climbed, 2 steps at a time, ignoring the ache in my legs and the pounding in my head. The sound followed me, echoing up the stairwell. And then, light. I burst through a trapdoor and found myself back in the lighthouse. Same cracked floorboards. Same dust. Same broken windows. Had I imagined it? But the lamp in my hand told me otherwise. The sun was setting, or rising, I couldn't tell. I was alone again. Or so I hoped. I collapsed on the floor, exhausted. My body trembled from cold and fear, but for the moment, I was safe. Or as safe as one could be, on this island. I had to rest. I had to gather my strength. Because whatever hunted me in the fog wasn't gone. It was waiting. And I knew it wouldn't wait forever. I must have slept, though I don't remember closing my eyes. Exhaustion dragged me into a shallow, restless sleep, where dreams and reality twisted together like roots underground. When I woke, darkness had fallen fully. But something was wrong. I couldn't hear the waves anymore. Only silence. Total, suffocating silence. The kind of silence where the world holds its breath. I lit the oil lamp again, its faint glow barely cutting through the black. I stood, joints aching, mind fogged with dread. I needed to move. Staying in one place felt dangerous, like being a rabbit frozen before the wolf. I opened the lighthouse door and stepped outside. The fog was thicker than before, curling low along the ground, moving against the wind. Almost alive. And then, I heard it. A voice. Far off, soft and distant, calling my name. Come back, I froze. It was my own voice. Exactly my voice. Echoing through the fog, calling me deeper into the woods. I clenched the lamp tighter, heart pounding. It called again. Come back, against every instinct screaming inside me, I followed it. The forest closed in once more, branches clawing at my clothes, leaves whispering things I couldn't understand. The voice drifted ahead, always just out of reach, leading me to a clearing I hadn't seen before. At the center of the clearing stood a figure. Tall, thin, unmoving. Its face was turned away from me, hidden beneath a dark hood, but something about its shape chilled my blood. It looked like me. Same height. Same frame. The figure raised its hand, my hand, and pointed to the ground at its feet. There, half buried in the earth, was a small, rusted compass. I stepped forward slowly, cautiously. When I reached for the compass, the figure vanished. Gone, as if it had never been there at all. I picked up the compass, wiping the dirt away. Its needle spun wildly, unable to settle on any direction. Broken. Or perhaps it simply couldn't find north on this island. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. breath turned to mist in the air. And from the tree-line, a low growl rose, deeper than any animal I'd ever heard. I turned, and there it was. Closer than ever before. The creature. Pale skin stretched too thin over long limbs, its joints bending in unnatural angles. Its mouth, if it could be called that, was too wide, lined with teeth like broken glass. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark, fixed on me. I couldn't move. It took a slow, deliberate step forward, talons scraping the earth. And then, it spoke. Its voice was a chorus of whispers, overlapping and discordant. "Why are you here?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. It tilted its head, studying me like a curious child. Then it took another step. Instinct took over. I turned and ran. Branches tore at my face and arms, the lamp swinging wildly, shadows leaping across the trees. The creature followed, silent and swift, never crashing through the underbrush, just gliding through it. I didn't know where I was running. The wood spun around me, the fog playing tricks on my eyes. And then, a clearing opened ahead, and in the center stood a tall monolith, covered in the same symbols I'd seen before. I pressed my palm against its cold surface, desperate for anything to stop the nightmare behind me. As my skin touched the stone, something stirred. The runes flared faintly with light. The creature stopped at the edge of the clearing, watching. And for the first time, it recoiled. It let out a sound that was almost a hiss, almost a sigh, before retreating slowly into the fog. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. The monolith pulsed gently beneath my hand, warm now, as if alive. What was this place? Why did the creature fear it? I spent the rest of the night there, leaning against the stone, too afraid to sleep, too exhausted to keep moving. The fog thinned slightly as the first hints of dawn crept through the trees. I had survived the night. But the island was far from done with me. Dawn's whispers when light returned, though it was more a soft gray than true sunlight. I left the clearing and continued deeper inland. The compass spun uselessly in my hand, but I carried it anyway. Eventually, the trees parted, revealing a ridge overlooking the island's interior. And what I saw stole my breath. The island wasn't empty. Ruins stretched across the valley below, remnants of an ancient settlement swallowed by vines and earth. Crumbling stone towers, shattered bridges, and weather-worn statues shaped like figures in agony. The fog clung to the ruins like a living thing, winding between the broken walls. Somewhere within that ruined city, I knew, lay answers. But something else lay there too. Waiting. Watching. I descended the ridge, feeling the weight of countless unseen eyes. As I drew closer, the wind carried faint voices from the ruins. Not words. Not songs. Laughter. Soft, distant laughter echoing through the empty streets. And above it all, far in the distance, I caught a glimpse of movement. A figure. Tall. Thin. Standing atop a broken tower, facing me. I couldn't tell if it was the creature, or something else entirely. But I knew this much: night would fall again soon. And I had to find shelter before it did. The ruins were colder than the forest. Even with the fog thinning in patches, the air within the crumbling streets felt thick and old, like it hadn't been disturbed in centuries. I stepped carefully between shattered archways and broken columns, my lamp casting uneasy shadows on cracked walls. The stonework was covered in the same spiral symbols I'd seen scattered across the island, but here they were larger, more intricate, etched deeply into the foundations of the buildings themselves. Who built this place? And what drove them away? The laughter I'd heard earlier had faded, replaced now by faint whispers that slithered through the streets, echoing off the stones. They didn't seem to come from any one place. They came from everywhere. As I walked, I found signs of life, or what was left of it. Crumpled bones lay in doorways, too large to be animal remains. Human, perhaps, though time and rot had stripped away all certainty. I passed what might have been a marketplace once. Stalls reduced to rubble, baskets of brittle seaweed and dried bones toppled and scattered by the wind. And beyond that, a temple. Its entrance was sealed by a massive stone door, half buried by earth. Above it, a carving of the creature itself. Long limbs. Wide, empty eyes. A mouth stretched far too wide. Beneath the carving was an inscription in a language I couldn't understand, but the spiral symbol was there again, etched at its center. This creature wasn't a visitor to the island. It was its god. Or its jailer. I didn't try to open the door. Some things are better left sealed. Instead, I circled the temple and found a narrow stairway descending into darkness. The stone steps were slick with moss and moisture, but I had little choice. I lit the lamp again and began my descent. The air grew colder with each step, heavy with the scent of earth and salt. The passage opened into a wide chamber, its walls lined with decaying tapestries. Figures danced across the faded cloth, people worshipping something vast and terrible, offering sacrifices beneath a black sun. In the center of the chamber stood an altar. And on the altar, an object I recognized from the dreams I didn't remember having. A mask. Smooth, bone-white, with hollow eyes and a faint smile carved into its surface. The moment I saw it, my skin crawled. But something, curiosity, madness, or some influence beyond myself, drew me forward. I reached out and touched the mask. The world shifted. The chamber faded. And suddenly, I was standing outside, beneath a sky torn open by cracks of light and darkness. Around me, shadows of people moved silently, their faces obscured, their bodies thin and distorted. They gathered around the temple, bowing before the creature as it descended from the sky, stretching its limbs toward them in silent command. I watched as they placed the mask upon their faces, one by one. And when the last person wore it, they turned, and looked directly at me. I stumbled back, the vision breaking like shattered glass. I was alone again, in the dark chamber. The mask still rested on the altar, unchanged. But I could feel it watching me. I left it behind and fled the way I'd come. The night returns. By the time I surfaced from the ruins, the light had faded once more. Nightfall on this island came faster than it should. And with nightfall came the sounds. Footsteps that didn't belong to me. Breathing from somewhere too close. And whispers. So many whispers, filling my head with words I couldn't understand. I ran blindly through the streets, searching for shelter. At last, I found a tower still mostly intact, its door broken but its walls strong. I slipped inside and bolted the door behind me, though I knew it wouldn't hold long against the creature. Inside, the tower spiraled upward, a narrow staircase leading to a lookout at the top. I climbed, lamp in hand, until I reached the highest point. From there, I could see the whole island. The fog, the ruins, the black sea stretching beyond. And, moving through the streets below, dozens of figures. Not just the creature. Others. Pale, thin shapes, wearing the same white masks I'd seen on the altar. They wandered the ruins in silence, searching, waiting. Had they once been people, like me? Had they put on the mask, and lost themselves to whatever power ruled this place? I backed away from the window, heart cold with dread. Suddenly, a sound from below. The tower door creaking open. I wasn't alone anymore. The steady scrape of footsteps climbed the stairs, slow and deliberate. Getting closer. I raised the lamp, hand trembling. The light flickered, casting long shadows on the stone walls. The steps paused just below me. And then, a face emerged from the darkness. White. Hollow-eyed. Smiling. It wore my face. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the lamp. The figure took a step closer, tilting its head, mimicking my fear. I swung the lamp at it, shattering the glass. Flames burst outward, lighting the stairwell. The figure recoiled, shrieking in a voice that wasn't human. I didn't wait to see if it burned. I fled back down the tower, smoke filling the air, flames chasing me down the stairs. Outside, the figures in the streets had turned toward the light, their heads snapping upward in perfect unison. I ran. Through streets that twisted and changed behind me, through alleys that closed like jaws. I didn't stop until the ruins were far behind, and the sea was before me again. But the boat. The boat was gone. The captain's boat, my only way off the island, had vanished. I was trapped. And behind me, in the ruins, the masked figures began to chant. Low and rhythmic, like a ritual awakening something beneath the earth. The creature's call echoed through the night once more. And I knew tomorrow would be worse. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I found a hollow beneath a leaning tree, curled against the cold earth, staring out across the black sea. The sky above was empty, no stars, no moon, only a vast, suffocating darkness stretching on forever. And somewhere beyond the shoreline, I could still hear the chanting. It never stopped. It rose and fell like the tide, rhythmic, relentless. The fire I'd started in the tower burned through the night, casting an orange glow against the fog. I had hoped it might drive the creatures away. But in the distance, I saw them gather. The pale figures, masked and silent, formed a wide circle around the flames. They didn't fear it. They worshipped it. The creature was among them, taller than the rest, standing perfectly still as they chanted. Watching. Waiting. I turned my gaze back to the sea, hoping, praying, that the boat might return with the dawn. But dawn never came. The sky remained dim, locked in perpetual twilight. Time no longer made sense here. I lost count of how long I sat there, hunger and thirst gnawing at me. My mind drifted between waking and dreaming, both equally nightmarish. At some point, I found myself walking again. I don't remember standing, but my legs carried me inland, away from the sea, through the forest of dead trees. The whispers returned, clearer now. They spoke my name, over and over. But they also spoke something else. A question. Do you remember? I tried to answer, but my mouth felt dry, my voice thin and distant. Remember what? And then, the truth began to bleed through the cracks of my mind. This wasn't my first time on the island. Flashes came to me in jagged fragments, me, alone on the shore, a storm raging overhead. Me, standing in the ruins, holding the mask. Me, running from something in the fog, always running. Again and again. I wasn't a visitor. I was trapped in a cycle. Every time I tried to leave, I woke up back at the lighthouse. The island wouldn't let me go. And worse still, maybe I hadn't come here by accident. Maybe I had chosen this. The broken sanctuary. I stumbled across another part of the ruins I hadn't seen before. A great hall, partially collapsed, its roof open to the sky. Inside, shattered mirrors lined the walls. Each one reflected something slightly different from reality, versions of myself standing in the same room, but their faces were wrong. Some smiled. Some wept. Some wore the mask. I approached one mirror, hesitant, and reached out to touch its cracked surface. The reflection didn't mimic me. It stayed still, staring with hollow eyes. Then, without warning, it reached out through the glass. I stumbled back as the reflection's hand pressed against the surface, as if trapped behind a veil. It mouthed something silently. A single word, stay. The room trembled. The mirrors began to crack, one by one, until they all shattered in unison, filling the air with a deafening roar. I fled once again, ears ringing, mind fracturing. A message in the earth at the edge of the ruins. I found something buried beneath the dirt, a journal. Old, water-damaged, but still legible in places. Its pages told a story not unlike mine. A traveler, shipwrecked on the island. Alone. Hunted. Searching for answers. The final entry read, "There is no escape. Only acceptance. Become what you fear, and the fear loses its power." Beneath that, a crude drawing of the mask. And beneath the drawing, a name scratched into the paper, my name. My hands trembled as I dropped the journal. How could it know my name? How long had I been here? Had I written those words myself, in some previous cycle I couldn't remember? A sudden rustling behind me. I spun around, expecting the creature, but saw nothing. Only the wind stirring the leaves. But I knew better. It was close. Always close. Facing the truth that night, I returned to the clearing where the monolith stood. The runes still glowed faintly beneath my touch. I stood before it, feeling the weight of countless unseen eyes watching from the woods. And for the first time, I spoke aloud, "I know you're there." The fog shifted. The creature stepped into the clearing. Its form no longer seemed entirely monstrous. There was something human in the way it moved, in the way it tilted its head toward me. It wasn't hunting me. It was waiting. Waiting for me to understand. "Who are you?" I asked. The creature took a step forward, and in its many voices, it whispered, "You." I staggered back, shaking my head. No. Impossible. And yet. I saw it clearly now. Its limbs. Its face. Twisted versions of my own. I had become the thing I feared. Or perhaps, I always had been. The creature extended its hand, fingers long and thin, inviting. The chanting rose in the distance, reaching a crescendo. I stood at the threshold of choice, accept what I had become. Or keep running from it forever. The wind died. The fog held its breath. And in that moment, I stepped forward. I don't know how long I stood there. The creature, my reflection, my shadow, waited, arm outstretched, patient as the fog itself. Behind it, the chanting of the masked figures rose and fell like the breathing of the island. I felt the weight of every choice I'd made pressing down on me, dragging me lower, until I no longer knew whether I stood on solid ground or simply floated in a dream of my own making. I took its hand. Cold. So cold it burned. The world cracked open around us. The trees dissolved into mist. The sky split into shards of light and darkness, swirling together in impossible patterns. And in that moment, I saw everything. The island's memory. I saw the first settlers, building their homes along the shore, worshipping the creature in fear and awe. I saw them crafting the masks to hide their faces from its gaze, believing it would spare them if they did not show fear. I saw their rituals, the sacrifices, the prayers, the endless cycles of worship and terror. And I saw their downfall. One by one, they gave themselves to the island. One by one, they became part of it. Just as I had. This wasn't a prison. It was a mirror. The creature had never been hunting me. It was waiting for me to remember who I was. I was the last of the island's guardians. Bound to its soil. Its protector, or its prisoner. And every time I tried to escape, the island called me back. Because without me, the balance would break. And something far worse would awaken beneath the earth. Revelation and choice. The creature released my hand and stepped back. I stood alone in the clearing once more, though the fog still pulsed with the memory of what I had seen. I could feel the island beneath my feet, alive, aware. And it asked me a question, silent but deafening, "Will you stay?" The sea called to me in the distance, whispering of escape, of freedom. But I knew the truth now. If I left, the cycle would begin again. Another traveler would wash ashore. Another soul would face the same terror. And the island would remain trapped in its endless nightmare. But if I stayed, if I accepted what I was, the island could rest. For a while, at least. I looked at my reflection in the broken compass, now still and silent. And I made my choice. The final night I returned to the lighthouse. Rebuilt the fire. Repaired the broken lens. The light turned slowly, casting its glow over the island and sea, warning ships away from this cursed shore. The masked figures watched from the tree lean, their faces unreadable, their purpose fulfilled, for now. The creature watched too, from the cliffs beyond the ruins. It no longer stalked me. It stood beside me. Part of me. Night fell again. And the island slept. I stood alone in the lighthouse, staring out into the endless dark. Waiting. Because someday, another ship will come. Another soul will step ashore, lost and afraid. And I'll be here, waiting for them. To show them the truth. Or to trap them, as I was trapped. Because that's what the island does. It remembers. It waits. And it never lets go.